Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're trying so hard to keep things together, but no matter what you do, life keeps finding ways to wear you down? It's not always the big challenges either. Sometimes it's the little, everyday things that quietly chip away at your strength, the small habits we hardly even notice, but that slowly erode our mental resilience over time. That's what we're exploring today. There are 7 common habits that many of us fall into, and while they might seem harmless at first, they gradually take a toll on our inner strength. These habits have a way of sneaking into our daily lives, making it harder to stay steady and calm in the face of challenges. The good news? Once you identify them, you can take steps to replace them with healthier practices that align with Stoic wisdom. Each of these habits goes against some of the core principles of Stoicism, but that's exactly why we'll turn to those principles for answers. Stoicism teaches us how to regain control over our thoughts, focus on what truly matters, and let go of what we can't control. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about learning to live with clarity, balance, and strength, even when life feels overwhelming. As we go through these habits, think about how they might show up in your own life. By recognizing them, you'll be taking the first step toward letting them go. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of what's been holding you back, and more importantly, practical ways to start building your resilience. Before we begin, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to like this video. It's a small gesture that helps share the timeless wisdom of Stoicism with more people who might benefit from it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time. Make sure to hit the bell icon too, so you'll always be in the loop whenever there's a new video to help you build a calmer, more resilient mind. Let's begin with something that affects all of us at some point: overthinking everything. Habit 1. Overthinking everything. Have you ever caught yourself lying awake at night, replaying a conversation or decision in your head over and over? Maybe you're wondering if you should have said something differently or made another choice. It's like your mind is stuck on a loop, constantly replaying the same scenario. You're searching for some clarity, but instead, you're just exhausting yourself. Overthinking might feel like you're solving a problem, but in reality, it's holding you back. When we get caught in these mental loops, we drain our energy on things that are already done, or things we can't control in the first place. And here's the thing. It doesn't just make us tired, it also makes us less able to handle the challenges of the present moment. From a Stoic perspective, this habit directly clashes with one of the most important ideas, the dichotomy of control. The Stoics remind us to focus only on what we can control and to let go of everything else. Marcus Aurelius himself said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But when we overthink, we're giving our power away. We're obsessing over things we can't change, like a mistake we made yesterday or what someone else might be thinking. Take an example. Let's say you had a conversation at work, and now you're wondering if you said the wrong thing. You replay every word, imagining how your colleague might have interpreted it. But here's the truth. No amount of thinking will change what's already happened. Instead of helping us, overthinking creates a kind of mental fog. It clouds our ability to think clearly and takes us away from the present moment where our real power lies. So, how do we break free? How do we stop this cycle and reclaim our mental energy? One simple but powerful technique comes from Stoicism. Pause and ask yourself, what's within my control? In the example of worrying about that work conversation, what you can control is how you approach the situation moving forward. Maybe you decide to clarify your point if necessary, or maybe you choose to trust that the interaction went just fine. Either way, the focus shifts from dwelling on the past to taking thoughtful, intentional action. Another practice that can work wonders is journaling. Before you go to bed, take a few minutes to write down the thoughts that are swirling in your mind. You don't need to solve them. Just get them out of your head and onto paper. Even Marcus Aurelius used this practice. His personal writings, now known as meditations, were essentially his way of sorting through his thoughts and finding clarity. Mindfulness is another way to quiet the noise. When you catch yourself overthinking, try to bring your attention back to the present moment. Notice your breath, the sounds around you, or even the feel of your feet on the ground. These small, grounding practices remind you that life is happening here and now, not in the endless loops running through your mind. Breaking the habit of overthinking takes time and patience. You might catch yourself falling back into it, and that's okay. The key is to recognize it and gently guide your mind back to what matters, what you can control. Once we understand how overthinking can hold us back, we can move on to another sneaky habit that drains our resilience: saying yes too often. Habit 2. Saying yes too often. Have you ever said yes to something, even though deep down you wanted to say no? Maybe it was agreeing to help a colleague with a project when your own plate was already full, or promising to attend an event when all you really wanted was some time to rest. In the moment, it feels easier to say yes than to explain why you can't. But later, you're left overwhelmed, drained, and even a little resentful. Saying yes too often might seem harmless, but it slowly eats away at your mental resilience. Each time you agree to something that doesn't align with your priorities or capacity, you're stretching yourself thinner and thinner. And here's the thing: Stoicism teaches us that resilience comes from focusing on what truly matters, not trying to please everyone around us. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." In other words, it's okay to disappoint others if it means staying true to what's essential. Yet, in practice, this is easier said than done. Many of us say yes out of a fear of conflict or rejection, or because we want to be seen as dependable. Imagine this scenario. Your boss asks if you can stay late to help with an extra assignment. You know you've already had a long day and need time to recharge, but instead of setting a boundary, you agree. Now, you're exhausted, the quality of your work might suffer, and you're sacrificing the energy you needed to handle tomorrow's challenges. This isn't just about one instance. Over time, saying yes too often leaves you with no room for the things that truly matter to you. Whether it's rest, personal growth, or spending time with loved ones, you end up prioritizing other people's needs over your own. So how do we change this? Stoicism offers some powerful tools to help us break this habit and reclaim our inner strength. First, start by reflecting on what's most important to you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have to ask yourself, does this need to be done?" This simple question can guide you in evaluating requests. The next time someone asks for your time or energy, pause and consider, does this align with my priorities, or am I just saying yes out of obligation? Learning to say no kindly but firmly is another essential skill. You don't have to explain or justify yourself. A simple, "I'd love to help, but I'm not able to right now," is often enough. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but each time you set a boundary, you're reinforcing your ability to protect what matters most. Here's another practice to consider. Whenever you're unsure whether to agree to something, take a moment to reflect on your reasons. Are you saying yes because it's truly important, or because you're afraid of what someone might think if you say no? The Stoics remind us that we can't control others' opinions, only our own actions and values. It's also helpful to practice a little self-compassion. If you've been in the habit of saying yes for years, it's not going to change overnight. Give yourself permission to make small, incremental shifts. Start with low-stakes situations, perhaps declining an invitation to an event that doesn't excite you, and build from there. The beauty of setting boundaries is that it doesn't just benefit you. When you say yes thoughtfully rather than reflexively, you're able to show up fully for the commitments you do make. You're less stressed, more present, and ultimately more resilient. Speaking of boundaries, let's talk about another habit that erodes resilience: neglecting rest. Habit 3. Neglecting rest. In a world that glorifies busyness, rest is often seen as a luxury, but it's actually a necessity. How many times have you heard someone proudly say, "I only got 4 hours of sleep last night," as if sacrificing rest is a badge of honor? Or maybe you've been the one pushing yourself to the limit, skipping breaks, or working late into the night because it feels like there's always more to do. The truth is, neglecting rest isn't a sign of strength. It's a fast track to burnout. And the cost isn't just physical, it's mental and emotional too. When you're constantly running on empty, your ability to think clearly, handle stress, and stay resilient takes a major hit. From a Stoic perspective, this goes against one of the core principles: moderation. The Stoics believed in balance, in finding the middle ground between overindulgence and deprivation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You must build up your life action by action, and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible." Rest isn't indulgence. It's one of those necessary actions that enables everything else. Think about it. When was the last time you skipped rest because you felt guilty about taking time for yourself? Maybe you stayed up late to finish a project, even though your body and mind were crying out for sleep. Or perhaps you worked through your lunch break, thinking it would help you catch up, only to feel drained and less productive afterward. These moments might feel small, but they add up. Over time, they erode your ability to bounce back from challenges. Let's look at sleep as an example. When you're sleep-deprived, even the smallest obstacles can feel overwhelming. Your mind races, your emotions feel more intense, and decision-making becomes a struggle. It's like trying to climb a mountain with no energy in your legs. And yet, so many of us treat sleep as something optional, something we'll catch up on later. But rest isn't just about sleep. It's also about giving yourself permission to pause during the day, to take a break, step away from your work, or spend a few moments in quiet reflection. The Stoics were big advocates of this. Seneca, for instance, encouraged moments of stillness and contemplation, reminding us that stepping back is often the best way to move forward. So how do we start prioritizing rest without feeling guilty? The first step is to shift your mindset. Instead of seeing rest as a luxury, start viewing it as an investment in your resilience. When you're well rested, you're better equipped to handle stress, make decisions, and stay focused on what truly matters. One practical approach is to schedule rest just like you would any other important activity. Set aside specific times for sleep, breaks, or relaxation, and treat them as non-negotiable. If your calendar is full, remember that even small pauses can make a big difference. A 5-minute walk outside, a few deep breaths, or even just closing your eyes for a moment can help reset your mind. Another way to incorporate rest is through mindfulness. The Stoics often reflected on the idea of presence, of being fully engaged in the moment. You can practice this by setting aside time to disconnect from distractions and focus on simple, restorative activities. Whether it's enjoying a cup of tea, reading a book, or simply sitting in silence, these moments remind you that life isn't just about doing, it's also about being. And let's not forget self-compassion. If you're someone who feels guilty about resting, remember that taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's how you ensure you can keep showing up for the people and responsibilities that matter most. As Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." Building resilience takes time, and rest is an essential part of that process. Once you start giving yourself permission to rest, you'll be ready to tackle another silent saboteur, comparing yourself to others. Habit 4. Comparing yourself to others. Have you ever opened social media, scrolled through someone's highlight reel, and suddenly felt like your own life just isn't enough? Their perfect vacation photos, career milestones, or even the way they seem to have everything together, it all leaves you wondering, why can't I have that? It's a familiar feeling for many of us. But here's the thing. When you compare your life to someone else's, you're not seeing the full picture. You're only seeing the polished version they've chosen to share. Comparing yourself to others might seem harmless in the moment, but over time, it takes a toll on your mental resilience. It shifts your focus away from your own growth and achievements, leaving you feeling inadequate or even resentful. From a Stoic perspective, this habit is especially harmful because it distracts you from the one thing you can truly control, your own actions and choices. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This reminds us that true contentment comes from within, not from what others have or appear to have. When we constantly compare ourselves, we're chasing an illusion. We're measuring our worth by external standards that have nothing to do with our values or goals. Think about how this shows up in daily life. Maybe you're working hard on your career, but then you see a former classmate who seems to be doing better, earning more money, getting more recognition, or achieving things faster. Or perhaps you're proud of your fitness progress until you see someone else with what looks like a perfect physique. These comparisons create a mental trap. Instead of celebrating your progress, you feel like it's not enough. So how do we break free from this cycle? How do we stop comparing ourselves to others and focus on our own path? Gratitude is a powerful place to start. When you catch yourself feeling envious or inadequate, pause and ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now? This simple shift in focus can remind you of the things you've already achieved, the people who support you, and the opportunities in front of you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave them if they were not yours." Another practice is to reflect on your own values and goals. What truly matters to you? What do you want to achieve, not because of what others are doing, but because it aligns with your purpose? Journaling can help here. Write down what you're working toward and why it's meaningful to you. This clarity can act as an anchor, keeping you grounded when the urge to compare strikes. It's also important to remind yourself that everyone's journey is different. What works for someone else might not work for you, and that's okay. Comparing yourself to others is like comparing a sunrise to a sunset. They're both beautiful in their own way, but they're meant to be different. Finally, focus on what's within your control. When you see someone else achieving something you admire, use it as inspiration rather than a source of envy. Ask yourself, what steps can I take to move closer to my own goals? The Stoics believed that effort and intention matter more than the outcome. By directing your energy toward what you can do, you'll find a sense of empowerment and progress. Breaking free from comparisons isn't easy, especially in a world that constantly shows us curated glimpses of other people's lives. But every time you choose gratitude, reflection, and action over comparison, you're building your mental resilience. As we let go of comparisons, it's time to confront another habit that quietly weakens us, avoiding difficult conversations. Habit 5. Avoiding difficult conversations. How often do you bite your tongue, avoiding confrontation to keep the peace, even if it means carrying the stress yourself? Maybe it's with a colleague, a friend, or even a family member. You tell yourself it's not worth the trouble, that staying silent is the easier option. But deep down, you know the issue doesn't disappear. It just lingers, weighing on you, chipping away at your mental strength. Avoiding difficult conversations might feel like a way to protect your peace in the short term, but over time, it does the opposite. It creates tension, misunderstandings, and even resentment. When we avoid addressing problems, we're not solving them, we're letting them grow. And from a Stoic perspective, this habit undermines two core values: truth and courage. The Stoics believed in facing challenges head-on, not because it's easy, but because it's the right thing to do. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When we avoid tough conversations, we're reacting out of fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, or fear of being misunderstood. But by avoiding these moments, we miss the opportunity to strengthen our relationships and ourselves. Think about a time when you avoided a difficult conversation. Maybe your boss gave you unrealistic expectations, but instead of addressing it, you stayed quiet, working late nights and feeling increasingly resentful. Or perhaps a close friend hurt your feelings, but you smiled through it, pretending everything was fine, while the frustration built up inside you. In both cases, the stress didn't go away, it just got buried, making it harder to stay calm and resilient in the future. So how do we change this? How do we face these conversations without letting fear hold us back? One way is to approach them with reason and empathy, two qualities deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy. Before diving into the conversation, take a moment to reflect on your intentions. Ask yourself, why is this important? What outcome am I hoping for? By clarifying your purpose, you can avoid reacting emotionally and instead focus on finding a constructive solution. Next, consider the other person's perspective. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to view others as human beings, capable of mistakes and misunderstandings, just like himself. This mindset can help you approach the conversation with empathy, making it less about blame and more about resolution. For example, instead of saying, "You always make my workload unbearable," you could say, "I'm feeling overwhelmed and would like to find a way to manage this better together." Another key Stoic principle is accepting discomfort as part of growth. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Yes, difficult conversations are uncomfortable, they're meant to be. But by leaning into that discomfort, you're building the courage and resilience needed to handle even bigger challenges. Here's a practical technique you can try. Before the conversation, rehearse what you want to say. Write it down or practice aloud, imagining how the other person might respond. This preparation not only calms your nerves, but also helps you communicate clearly and confidently when the moment comes. It's also important to manage your expectations. Not every conversation will end perfectly, and that's okay. The goal isn't to control the outcome, it's to take responsibility for your actions. By addressing the issue, you're doing your part to foster honesty and understanding, even if the other person doesn't respond as you'd hoped. Facing tough conversations can feel like a daunting task, but with each one, you're strengthening your ability to navigate conflict and stand up for what matters. Over time, this practice becomes less intimidating and more empowering. Facing tough conversations builds strength, but what happens when we try to do too much at once? Let's talk about multitasking. Habit 6. Multitasking constantly. We've all been there, answering emails while eating lunch, texting someone while half listening to a meeting, or juggling 5 tasks at once, thinking we're being more productive. But by the end of the day, you feel completely drained, your mind is scattered, and you can barely remember what you actually accomplished. Multitasking feels like a way to get more done, but in reality, it does the opposite. It divides your attention, reduces your efficiency, and leaves you mentally exhausted. The Stoics, who valued focus and presence, would remind us that true strength comes from doing one thing at a time with full attention and care. Let's take a relatable example. Imagine you're working on an important project, but at the same time, your phone keeps buzzing with notifications. You try to respond to messages, check your email, and work on the project simultaneously. By the end of the hour, you've made little progress, and worse, you feel overwhelmed. Your brain has been pulled in too many directions, and it's struggling to recover. From a Stoic perspective, this habit clashes with the principle of being present in each moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do every act of your life as though it were the last act of your life." This isn't about rushing through tasks, it's about giving each task your full attention, treating it as important and worthy of your focus. Multitasking doesn't just rob us of focus, it also weakens our mental resilience. When your mind is constantly jumping from one thing to the next, it has no time to rest, reflect, or recharge. Over time, this leaves you feeling stressed, scattered, and incapable of handling challenges effectively. So, how do we break free from the cycle of multitasking? How do we rebuild our focus and resilience in a world that constantly demands our attention? The first step is to practice single tasking. Choose one task, set aside a specific amount of time for it, and commit to focusing only on that. For example, if you're writing an email, turn off notifications, close other tabs, and give it your undivided attention. It might feel strange at first, but you'll notice that the quality of your work improves, and so does your sense of accomplishment. Mindfulness is another powerful tool. The Stoics believed in being fully present in the here and now, and mindfulness helps us do just that. When you catch yourself trying to multitask, pause and take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what am I doing right now? How can I give this moment my full attention? This simple practice can help you stay grounded and focused. Another strategy is to simplify your priorities. The Stoics understood that we can't do everything, and trying to do so only leads to frustration. Instead of spreading yourself thin, identify the tasks that truly matter and let go of the rest. Epictetus said, "If you seek truth, you will not seek to gain a victory by every possible means, and when you have found truth, you need not fear being defeated." The truth here is that doing fewer things with more care often leads to better results and greater peace of mind. It's also helpful to schedule intentional breaks throughout your day. Multitasking often comes from the urge to fill every moment with activity, but rest is an essential part of productivity. Even a short pause, stepping outside for fresh air, or closing your eyes for a few minutes can reset your mind and help you approach your tasks with renewed focus. Finally, be patient with yourself. If you've been multitasking for years, it's not something you'll change overnight. The key is to start small. Maybe it's putting your phone on silent while you eat, or setting a timer to focus on one task for 20 minutes. Each time you practice single tasking, you're strengthening your ability to stay present and building the resilience needed to handle life's demands. Now that we've tackled multitasking, let's end with one of the most profound habits: ignoring your own needs. Habit 7. Ignoring your own needs. When was the last time you truly checked in with yourself, your needs, your emotions, your well-being? Not just on the surface, but really pause to ask, how am I doing? For so many of us, the answer is, not recently enough. It's easy to get caught up in the demands of everyday life, always prioritizing others over yourself. Whether it's your job, your family, or even your friends, it feels natural to put their needs first. But over time, ignoring your own needs erodes your mental resilience. It's like running a race without ever stopping to refuel. You might keep going for a while, but eventually you'll hit a wall. The Stoics understood the importance of maintaining balance in life. They believed that neglecting yourself wasn't noble, it was harmful. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And how can you nurture those thoughts if you're constantly depleted? Think about a time when you pushed your own needs aside. Maybe you skipped meals because work was too busy, or you said yes to every request, even though you were exhausted. Or perhaps you felt guilty for taking time to rest or do something just for yourself. Over time, these moments add up, leaving you feeling burned out and disconnected from your own well-being. Here's the truth. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. When you neglect your needs, you're not just hurting yourself, you're also limiting your ability to show up fully for others. You can't pour from an empty cup. So how do we start honoring our needs while still fulfilling our responsibilities? The first step is carving out time for self-reflection. The Stoics often practiced introspection, asking themselves questions like, Am I living in alignment with my values? Am I giving energy to what truly matters? You can do this through journaling, meditation, or simply taking a quiet moment each day to check in with yourself. Another powerful practice is self-compassion. Epictetus reminds us, "You are a soul carrying a corpse." It's a blunt way of saying that you, your essence, deserves care and attention, not just the shell you inhabit. When you catch yourself being overly critical or pushing yourself too hard, pause and ask, "Would I treat a friend this way?" Then, offer yourself the same kindness and understanding you'd give to someone you love. Setting boundaries is also crucial. It's easy to say yes to everything, but every yes to someone else is a no to something you might need, like rest, joy, or personal growth. Learning to say no respectfully but firmly is one of the most empowering skills you can develop. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's a way of protecting your time and energy for what matters most. Here's an example. Let's say a colleague asks for your help with a project, but you're already stretched thin. Instead of immediately agreeing, you could say, "I'd love to help, but I need to finish my current work first. Could we revisit this next week?" This small act of boundary setting not only protects your well-being, but also shows others that your time is valuable. And let's not forget the importance of doing things that bring you joy. Whether it's reading, exercising, spending time with loved ones, or even just sitting in the quiet with a cup of tea. These moments recharge your spirit. They remind you that life isn't just about responsibilities, it's also about living. It's also worth remembering that honoring your needs doesn't mean ignoring others. Stoicism teaches us that we're all part of a greater whole. By taking care of yourself, you're better equipped to contribute to your relationships, your community, and the world around you. When we take care of ourselves, we can better handle life's challenges. Let's bring all these ideas together in our final thoughts. We've explored 7 habits that quietly erode your mental resilience. Overthinking, saying yes too often, neglecting rest, comparing yourself to others, avoiding difficult conversations, multitasking constantly, and ignoring your own needs. Each one might seem small on its own, but together they have a powerful impact on your ability to stay strong and centered. The good news is, you don't have to tackle them all at once. Resilience isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Small, consistent changes over time can make a world of difference. So take a moment today to reflect on just one of these habits. Which one feels the most familiar to you? What small step could you take to start shifting it? Remember, Stoicism teaches us that strength comes from within. By focusing on what you can control, embracing the present moment, and aligning your actions with your values, you're already on the path to greater resilience. Maybe that means setting a boundary you've been avoiding, or allowing yourself to rest without guilt. Maybe it's journaling to quiet the noise of overthinking, or simply pausing to appreciate the blessings you already have. Whatever it is, know that every step forward is a victory worth celebrating. As you start applying these ideas, don't be too hard on yourself. Change takes time, and setbacks are part of the process. The key is to keep moving forward, no matter how small the steps may seem. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Which habit do you think is the hardest to break? Let's discuss it in the comments. I'll be reading and responding to as many as I can. Your stories might inspire someone else to take that first step too. Before you go, don't forget to like this video. It helps spread the wisdom of Stoicism to more people who might benefit from it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new video on building a stronger, calmer mind. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Remember, resilience isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up every day and doing your best. You've got this.